So the funniest thing's been happening to me recently. We've started We've been doing it for a long time, posting clips on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and everything. But a few times, usually you just grab footage from wherever, right, Ahmed? You grab, like...
Yeah, I usually use, like, trailers for games that we're talking about on YouTube because I feel like that's pretty fair game to pull from.
But every once in a while, I'll talk about a game, and you ask me to pull footage for it. And it'll be like a game I'm playing all the time. Recently, it was Marvel Rivals. And you'll shoot me a text Sunday night or something saying you want some footage for it. And suddenly the idea of playing the game is just like mind poison to me. I don't want to do it anymore.
Dude, it's yeah. I can relate to that heavily. I try not to let this podcast impact my, like, what I want to play or what I enjoy, but it absolutely does. I don't know how to have it not do that.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
I was excited when Steam started that, like, it was recording all your gameplay and you would just always have the past 2 hours and you could look at it. And that worked for me, and then they pushed an update, and that doesn't work for me anymore. And so I have had to use what's it called, OBS and everything, and it's not as fun. And it's also like I'm hypercritical of my gameplay when I know a bunch of people are going to see it, like, because we're looking.
Well, it's not so much
good.
even that. For me, it's more like it becomes slightly closer to work.
Yeah, exactly.
When it's related to the podcast, and for something like video games, which has always been like this safe haven of entertainment and fun and freedom for me, having that connection in my mind kind of poisons things, even though it really shouldn't.
Finally,
because like this is something we do for fun.
There's no money.
We're not obligated to do it. There's no money involved, but like, there still is that connection there.
Life when you've got a Helldivers 2 due at midnight.
Yeah, luckily, I don't have this problem because I've been streaming for almost a decade.
Right.
So video games are already work.
Yeah.
Oh no.
But I've gotten over it. It took a couple mental breakdowns between then and there, but I've gotten over it. But luckily,
I do feel like it's just something you have to get over on your own somehow.
I've thought about picking up streaming.
You ask me for footage. It's like, oh, I just streamed this game like yesterday. Yeah, I just dig through my stream VODs for spicy Iron Man clips,
I've thought about starting
Marvel
stream,
Rivals again.
But like having to watch chat, like there are a few games that I've played through that have been very special to me. And the idea of starting a game not knowing it was going to be one of those and experiencing it while having to glance at chat every 30 seconds.
I can't.
That sounds horrible to me.
I can't stomach that.
It's like second nature now. Even if I'm not playing, I'm glancing at my second monitor every so often, and it's wild that's been baked into my mind.
Oh man, yeah, no, I'm with you. Like, the streaming does have a certain appeal to me, like sharing a game you're playing with, however many people. But then you do lose those intensely like special personal moments.
Yeah, I'm not gonna feel
very
emotion
important
on stream. I'm not gonna do it.
Like, imagine playing Outer Wilds for the first time.
That's the one
on
I think
a stream.
But even like a game like Monster Hunter, I don't want my first playthrough to be on stream. The backseating would get on my nerves and everything. I would love to do like in-game stuff on a stream. I think would be fun, but
yeah. But yeah, I guess streamers are just built different.
That's just the life.
Yeah.
I wanted to share a bit of it.
Built completely different.
Hey, and welcome back to Game Talk. I'm your host, Sam and Mion. Today I'm joined by Connor.
Hey, guys.
And Mike.
Hello.
And this topic was brought on by the release of Civilization VII. You could pay, I believe, $100 as opposed to $60 or $70, the base price of the game, to play the game 5 days early. And this just got me thinking, this is a trend we're seeing more and more in the games industry, where these big AAA games are coming out with an option to pay extra to play a few days early. And so I just wanted to dissect this new trend with you guys. What do you guys think? What games have got you in the past, if any? Yeah.
I've only done this one time. Have you done it at all, Mike?
No, I've never done it because I've never decided it was worth it to pay $100 for a video game.
Yeah, I would have told you that 15 minutes ago, but Ahmed got me. He reminded me that I paid $100.
I audited him.
Yeah, he audited me. And I had to actually check my Steam purchase history because I don't remember doing this, but I apparently paid $100 to play Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. I think it was 3 days early, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was
So,
like a Friday versus a Monday or something, which is sinister.
Yeah, that I mean, they do that on purpose, right? So
Yeah.
Civilization 7, I think, releases officially today or maybe last night or something.
Yeah.
Which is a weekday, right? Early in the week.
Yeah.
Versus getting it on Thursday last week. So you have the end of the week and the weekend to play it if you pay extra. So they absolutely know what they're doing. And yeah, this trend, obviously it's predatory. It's trying to squeeze more money out of people. But I kind of wanted to also explore the other side of this, which is doing this as a way, publishers are doing this as a way to kind of mitigate rising development costs and what the kind of, I guess, acceptable middle ground is between that.
See, I think it depends on a lot of things because we're looking at it in a vacuum. I think it kind of sucks. The reason I justified it, I remember now that we talked about it a bit, I was able to justify it with Dragon Ball because I felt like I was probably going to buy the season pass anyway. And it came with the season pass.
Right, because with Dragon Ball, it came with the season pass.
And I think that's fine. And I think games like Dragon Ball, I care about it less. The one time I feel like I got particularly burned by this was that I think it effectively ruined my experience with Diablo 4 completely. Because Diablo 4 was a very fun game to play multiplayer, or so I've heard. But I bought it on launch day for $70 instead of buying it 3 days early for $100 like every single person I know did. And by the time I had the game, they were like 50 levels ahead of me and nearly done with the story or totally done with the story. And we just didn't get to play together. By the time I was caught up, they were done playing.
This practice absolutely creates FOMO, and it's very effective because, like, if one person in a group is getting it, especially if it's a multiplayer-centric game or a game that you can
especially
somehow share with other people, co-op, then yeah, like you feel pressure to kind of jump in. With Civilization even, like, obviously I got by that because I'm a huge fan of Civilization, have been since 5. So I guess I'm not as old as some of the old heads for Civilization, but I've been there for, a decade plus now. But I got by Civilization, got it Thursday, have been playing it, and I have some friends in my circle that were like, yeah, maybe I should get it too, because when we inevitably play multiplayer, you're going to have way more experience than me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, even with a game like Civilization, which is primarily single player, there are FOMO related reasons why someone might want to jump in, and publishers are absolutely exploiting that because they know. And this practice has been largely successful. Like, I feel like a lot of people do shell out the money to play these games early.
It's such an angle is like pre-order rewards. It's just an evolution on that. Like, pre-order it now and get the exclusive.
Well, pre-order rewards typically weren't associated with an inflated cost. Yeah. Pre-order rewards were just like, if you buy the game now early, you're just going to get a couple extra trinkets or whatever. But now there's this practice of
$100.
Pre-order the game early and pay extra to play it a few days early.
I think pre-ordering is a kind of a side note, but I think pre-order bonuses are insidious as well. Because in a digital age like we live in now, there's just no reason to pre-order a video game. You don't know if it's good or not. It's not out yet. There's no reason to do that. You can find out if it's good. I kind of get it when you get to play early. I get spending that extra money a little bit. And I think by and large it's something. There's just a handful of games that it really bothers me. Another example on this list, like Sonic X Shadow Generations did this. I think it was a $40 game, and if you paid $60, you would get to play it early. Who cares? Yeah. Like, if you really wanted to play it, like that's harmless.
That one's puzzling.
That hurts nobody, to me.
There are some games on this list, or that have released in the past few years, that have like an insane amount of hype behind them, and for that, even if you don't necessarily agree with the practice, you can understand why they would do it, because obviously people want to play, I don't know, Assassin's Creed Shadows early. Like that's going to launch 3 days early. People are going to play that early. Obviously, people are going to want to play Diablo early. But yeah, for a game like Sonic Shadow Generations or Life is Strange Double Exposure,
right?
I mean, this to me, like, seeing the latter two games I just listed on this list means that I think people have seen the popular games have success with this practice, and now everyone's starting to jump in on it because they're like, oh, people are just going to shell out money.
I'm going to blow your mind here. You're already paying a premium to play these games on the day that they release. I very rarely pay $60 for a video game. I usually wait a few months until it's $30 to play it on Steam to buy video games, or get them on sale. Like this is just kind of an extension of that to me.
Yeah, the FOMO, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's so much FOMO in the games industry, and when new games come out, like, you better believe Grand Theft Auto, when it launches, I bet it's gonna have a 3-day early access
bet it's a
thing, and
week.
I bet 80% of the audience is going to
80%
going
paying
to shell out.
$100? No.
Well, I don't know if it's gonna be $100, but I'm just saying that if there's an early access period, I think most people will jump on it.
I don't think most people, because I don't think most people do now with even the biggest games. Do we have numbers for that on any of them?
I don't think we do, but that would be fascinating to me. I don't think most people do, right? I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think Grand Theft Auto will be an exception.
I mean, money's just tight these days, and they are already talking about GTA 6 being an $80 to
$100 or
game.
something, which
Yeah.
would be ridiculous.
And
yeah,
people just can't afford. There's just not that many people that can afford to pay 150% of the cost of a game to play 3 days early. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I see the practice as too insidious in most cases, because it is just something that, like,
it's an option, right? It's an option.
You're not. But there's one specific instance where it actually gave you some value, and that's if you were the world's biggest Concord fan. You literally got 3 more days with that game.
Right. So Concord also had a pay to play early thing going, and hilariously, right, Concord failed, so you got your money back and you got more time with the game. But
Wow.
yeah, I don't know. So I know people have very strong opinions about this, and obviously my opinion is coming from a place of privilege, but if it's a game I really want to play, I honestly do not mind shelling out extra money for it. But I don't want to see this be the norm now, right? Like, we got the jump from $60 to $70 with the launch of the PS5, Xbox One, and I feel like this is basically going to become another soft increase, where they're like, okay, we can't raise the price past $70 so soon because that will be a crisis. But what if basically every game that is launched from now on has an early access option to somehow make up for more of those costs? Because, as we know, as journalists like Jason Schreier have reported, the cost of game development has grown out of control. Even raising the cost from $60 to $70 per game has not really mitigated those rising costs so much. So developers are trying to find ways to increase monetization. Obviously, that's why you have the battle passes, the live service games are so popular to go for because those pay for themselves. But for games that aren't like that, the $70 games, even $70 is not sustainable now for AAA, which is crazy to say.
Absolutely.
Which is why I think, rather than raising from 70 to 80, I think we're going to see basically every game in a year or two adopt this practice of, hey, $90 to play early or $100 to play early. And a percentage of the audience will jump on that and help subsidize the cost of the game development.
I'll say that on the scale of scummy business practices, I think this ranks pretty low for me. High being worse, low being not so bad. Like, because look at it next to some of the more awful not scandal is a strong word, but like some of the worst stuff that we've seen over the past 15 years. I think day one DLC is way worse than this. I think,
like, paid.
Yeah, I think microtransactions in a single player game, a million times worse than this.
I can't stand
Or
that.
even microtransactions in general. I don't like them. I think a monthly subscription is worse than this. I think selling those stupid multiplayer passes, that was a thing for a while, is worse than this.
But yeah, online passes were awful. I don't know why we ever did that.
Because in the grand scheme of things, it is 3 days early, but you also can wait 3 days and you have the same game that all those people had at the end of it. With exceptions like Diablo, where you get left behind by the player base. I really think in cooperative multiplayer centric. And Diablo is practically an MMO. I think that was what was so bad about it, because I think most multiplayer games I play, I wouldn't mind. Like Helldivers, I don't care if I'm behind my friends in Helldivers. That doesn't bother me at all. If they had done it. It's really, I just hate Diablo. I have a lot of vitriol for that game.
Yeah, because when we played Diablo, like, by the time you joined, I was basically, I think I was already done with the story, and I was doing some of the end game content.
Yeah, it was you and one other guy, and you came and you killed my boss for me, and I was like...
Yeah, I jumped into your game, and you were fighting a boss, and I two-shot him, and
yeah,
like, it basically trivialized your experience with the game.
Yeah, and I didn't
which sucks.
I didn't want to play it with you because of that, but I didn't want to play it alone because it wasn't fun, and...
I thought it was plenty of fun alone.
I was just throwing some spice in there. It was actually pretty fun. I've actually gone back to Diablo 4 a few times, but I never did get to play.
And I hear it's gotten better, like, with the expansion.
Yeah, and they also, like... Yet. Diablo 4 is one of the rare cases where it does seasons, so it actually just straight up reset. And as long as they didn't do it again with the season, then levels reset, you could do another playthrough with your friends, and it was probably fine. I just didn't get to do that.
Right. No, but, like, that day one experience... It matters for your perception of the game. It matters for the health of the game. Like, so much importance is placed on the game's launch, and rightfully so, that I think this is another, I guess, factor in that, another ingredient in that meal where, like, yeah, you pay early, you get that day one experience faster. Does that impact someone else's genuine day one experience on launch day?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I can't think of very many games I would make that I would spend the money for. Like I said, I did it for Dragon Ball because it came with the season pass. I kind of stand by that. I think given the same info, I would make that same decision today. I would do that for Monster Hunter if it came with the DLC. And by the DLC, I mean the expansion.
Would you do it for Monster Hunter if no DLC, no
Absolutely
expansion?
Not.
But
I don't think I would.
3 days to play early.
And let's not say it's 3 days early. Let's say they push the release date back 3 days. I still don't think I would do it. I just... I don't know. I value a weekend less than a lot of people do because I'm single and I don't have that much going on. If I want to play video games on a weekday, I get off work and I play video games. Like I don't call off work, but I can just make sure my afternoon's free and my evening. And
I mean, another thing to consider is like obviously kids, right?
Yeah.
Weekends are very valuable to kids, and with this new practice, you can bet kids are asking to get these games early so they can play them on Saturday and Sunday as opposed to when it launches on Tuesday or Wednesday.
I'm just going to be straight up. I don't know if I could ever love another person enough to spend $30 more so that they can play a game a couple days early.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine if parents knew the full context, I bet they wouldn't capitulate. But kids are good at being sneaky, right? Kids would be like, "Oh, this game launches this day and it just costs $100." And parents who probably aren't as tuned in would probably look at that and be like, something doesn't seem right, but you're annoying me, and I'm going to just give it to you.
Imagine if they did this on Christmas Day. Like you had to pay $100 to play a game on Christmas Day, or it would come out on the 28th.
That's crazy. That would be crazy.
Or like New Year's.
Although I don't think games often release the week of Christmas because, like, games that release in the holiday season go basically before the week of Christmas.
Yeah.
Because that's like the holiday launch window, because they know people will be mostly spending time with family. But anyway, yeah, so I'm looking at this list of pre-order early access pay extra games. The one that really stands out to me here that is so egregious is Star Wars Outlaws. 3 days, $110, and it was a broken mess at launch.
And it was a $60 game, wasn't it? So you're paying almost twice as much.
I think it was a $70 game.
Shouldn't have been.
It was a Ubisoft game, right? So Ubisoft games are always
they're $70.
Okay.
Yeah, that's typical though.
That's crazy.
A lot of these have been broken messes. Some of them have even been broken messes that were improved on the launch day. I want to say there was something. I think you could play Indiana Jones early. I want to say it did this. It's not on the list you have because it's a later game, but I think Indiana Jones did this. And path tracing was not available until launch day. So there were literally features, and that's a single player, like play it once and you're done kind of game. So you literally got a worse experience for playing it early.
Yeah, I don't know. We're not inside the industry, so obviously we're just looking at it from a consumer perspective, but I don't think things are great, right? Like,
no,
they're not making enough money. The developers are pushed to the brink of, Like they know the game's not fully done, but they're being pushed to release it anyway. So they're just trying to put out fires where they can to meet the early release date, to make a little extra money. And even that in itself is very shady because you're pushing out an unfinished product early just to make a few extra bucks to capitalize on hype. I don't know. It's messy. It's very messy.
The industry
There's only like
kind of bad right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like for me personally, just speaking from a personal perspective, because obviously this is just up to everyone's what everyone thinks is moral and if you're comfortable with parting with the money. But to me, like if it's a game that I know I'm gonna love and play extensively, like Sparking Zero, right? Like I knew that that's going to be a game that's always in rotation for me.
Yeah.
A game that I'll always go back to.
Special game.
So I was like, yeah, this is good. This is a special game to me. Similarly with Civilization 7, and I'll talk about that later, but like I have over 500 hours in Civilization 5. I have over 500 hours in Civilization 6. So I was just like, there's a very good chance I'm going to play Civilization 7 similarly.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't mind shelling out some money to get this experience I covet so highly early. But that's just my take on it. And I know everyone has their own.
And my take is that I'm probably,
cross.
in 99% of cases, I'm not going to do that, but it doesn't bother me at all that you do. So
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt me most of the time for you to do that. So I just kind of think it's fine.
Most of the time, right? You're
Yeah.
thinking of
Thinking of
Diablo
Diablo,
4.
it literally did kill
Yeah.
the game for me, and I never finished it. But most of the time, doesn't bother me at all for other people to get to play the game a little earlier because they cared a little more and spent the money.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, just I guess play devil's advocate a bit. It is a slippery slope, right? Because if a lot of people are doing this and supporting this practice, like obviously publishers are going to see how far they can push this, right? Like,
Yeah.
will people pay $150 for 2 weeks early access? Like,
Yeah.
someone's going to try that. I don't know if it's going to work, but if it does, I don't know what picture it paints for the future of our industry, where we get progressively earlier and earlier, and thus more broken releases early for more money.
I'm curious what it'll do to consumer tendencies as well, because you already, outside of the biggest launches, you could already wait 6 months and pay $40 or even less for these $70 games a lot of the time. You could wait for a sale. They just lose value over time. And now I wonder, like, people were willing to pay $70 day one, but now that that's not really day one anymore, now that you're not a part of that day one experience,
It's not.
I wonder how many people are going to say, like, well, if I can't play it day one, why don't I just wait a couple months?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If this isn't a game that I was extremely excited for, why don't I just give it a couple months?
And
pay
obviously,
less,
if that
get a better
starts
experience.
happening, we're not going to see this trend
it'll go
continue for
away,
much
yeah.
longer. So
I think it's
But
unlikely, but I think it's
Yeah.
something I thought of.
FOMO's too powerful. FOMO's a too
FOMO's very
of a
powerful,
feeling that people will just be willing to throw extra money because it's like, oh, all my friends are going to be playing Starfield on launch.
Yeah.
Was that-
too?
was that one of the early launch ones?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it did have an early launch.
It
option,
did?
I think if you paid.
I think a lot of Microsoft games have been doing this for a while now.
But at the end of the day, it's a story-based game, so early access just gets you
Yeah, it hurt nobody.
spoilers.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just Bethesda has the clout to do that. They're one of the
Yeah.
few that can do that and be largely successful in doing it. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I do think we'll see more of this going forward from smaller publishers. Like, from an industry perspective, they're definitely going to see how far they can push this before consumers are like, no more. But yeah,
I mean,
I'm
look at
curious to see what that limit is going to be.
Looking at some of the other boundaries they're pushing right now, it already feels like buying a AAA game on launch is essentially an early access experience a lot of the
Yeah.
time now.
A lot of the time,
With a
yeah.
lot of, I mean, God, Spider-Man, which 2 years late to the party and it's an early access experience. I'm still not over that. That was ridiculous. That's the one off the top of the dome. It's the last one I played.
Yeah,
Pay more
that
money.
one, I don't know. There's some more factors that kind of muddy that one because one could argue that from Sony's perspective, they already made most of their money on that game. So they just thought, like, even if it's a subpar port, we're going to get a few tens of thousands of sales, whatever. That's good enough. Which sucks that they feel that way, apparently, but you got to factor that into the calculation too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot more to say, I don't think, about the early window.
Yeah, I think it's
I could
unethical.
probably do some funky math because I bought Minecraft in 2011. What year did Minecraft finally actually release?
Oh
man, I don't know.
I want to say I was still in high school for it. I was going to run an inflation calculator to see if I paid more. I arguably paid more, but I think they raised the price on Minecraft, so I don't think that is the case.
They
might
did.
have-
I remember.
Yeah,
I remember that.
So I actually got it cheaper. I got to pay less to play early. That's a business model.
No,
that's
that's
art of the deal right there.
a way better business model.
All right. Let's move into what we're playing. We might be doing this a little early this episode, but I've got a lot to say. So let me ask you first, Mike. Have you purchased and played Civilization 7 yet?
I have not.
All right. So I paid early access for Civilization 7. I got it on Thursday, right? I think Thursday midnight it launched. And I have 35 hours in this game already. So
Wait a
I've been
minute, since
playing this
Thursday.
game. Yeah, I've been playing this game a lot.
You're on like full-time job pace.
Yeah.
You're
so
over
I've been playing this game for
job pace.
35 hours. I've completed 2 full games. So my first game I finished just over 19 hours of Civilization 7. So the first game I played as China, second game I played as
Suspicious.
Tecumseh, and I'm on my third game right now playing as Japan. Well, the leader Japan, not the civilization, and that's one thing I'll go into, right? So let me just start with my high-level thoughts. I think this game is drastically different from Civilization 6 and 5. And I think that might be why we're seeing a very strong reaction to it. I think there are some things that are some things that objectively are bad about this game. Like the UI is atrocious, especially compared to the previous games like Civ 6, 6.5. I'm mentioning those two because those are the two I played. I don't know about the previous games, but
People love
5 and
4.
6 had some of the best UI I've ever seen in a video game. The one in 7 seems like it was just stapled on, and it doesn't really give you useful information. You have to really dig to get information you need. So
That
that's
sucks,
a huge
'cause I would
negative.
think that's like 60% of the game.
No, exactly. In a game like Civilization, the UI is extremely important because that's the vehicle for gameplay in a game like Civilization. So that being subpar at launch is a huge detriment to the game. But I will say that the systems that they have introduced in this game, what their vision is for this game, and actually playing this game, it's excellent. Playing this game moment to moment still elicits that one more turn feeling, which is the most important benchmark to me of the success of a Civilization game. Where you're playing this game, you look at the clock, suddenly 4 hours have passed, you should have gone to bed like 3 hours ago, and you're like, what am I doing with my life? I felt that way playing Civilization 5, I felt that way playing Civilization 6, and I do feel that way playing Civilization 7 as well. So from that perspective, I think it is a successful game. And I do think a lot of people, I've looked online at people's thoughts because I was just curious. And the number one complaint does seem to be about the UI, which I totally understand. I agree with that. But a lot of the other complaints, I feel personally, is because they have just taken such a radical departure from the Civilization formula in this game. And I think it largely works. I think at launch, this is a better game than launch Civ 6 or launch Civ 5. Obviously, if you compare this game right now with Civ 6 in its current iteration, obviously Civilization 6 is better. After 2 expansions and countless balance tweaks and whatnot. But at launch, and Mike, you probably know this, Civilization games launch and people always say, oh, this is a disaster. I want to go back to the old one, right?
Every time.
Every time. That happens with Civilization. And this one's no exception, but I do think the foundation they have to build on with Civilization 7 is stronger than the foundation they had for 6 and 5. So let me discuss some of the major changes that have happened in this game. So the big change right now, or the big change overall for Civilization 7, is that the game is split into 3 ages now. So you start in the Antiquity Age, you go to the Exploration Age, and then you finish in the Modern Age, I think they call it. And the big controversial thing is that each time you change ages, you change civilizations. So the thought behind this, I think, is that civilizations, if you look at our Earth history, like our real history, civilizations grow and change over time, become other civilizations, some fall, some rise, what have you, etc., etc. So I think they wanted to emulate that aspect of civilization in Civilization 7. And I think it's a really good idea. I think this one was very controversial for people. People really like picking their civilization and playing it fully through the game. But this civ switching, I think, largely works for me. But you get some really goofy things happening, right? Like when you do that. Because like I said, my current game that I'm playing as Himiko from the Japanese empire, right? And she's my leader, but my civilization that I started with in the Antiquity Age was Rome. So she was the leader of Rome, and then she turns into America, in in the Exploration Age, right? So you get like goofy things like that with the civilization switching, but how you actually switch the civilizations, I think, is really cool because based off the decisions you make in, let's say, for the example, the Antiquity Age, decisions you make, gameplay decisions you make, and things you achieve in that age, combined with the civilization you picked initially, shape which civilization you can evolve into in the next age. So it's a very dynamic process of you play the game a certain way, you accomplish certain objectives, and then when the age ends, that puts you on a kind of branching path where, like, based off the decisions you made, based off of what you did, here are the civilizations you can become. And I think that's really cool. And I think these civilizations themselves, they feel more unique to me, like as individual civilizations that have unique, civics and gameplay mechanics. They feel more unique to me than they did at launch for Civ 5 or Civ 6. Obviously, there's some exceptions. There's some really good civilizations in 5 and 6. But by and large, I feel like the civilizations in 7 feel really distinct. They all have different focuses, which are very conveniently printed on top of the screen. So, like, if you want to play, more economic focused, you can pick a civilization that is economy focused. Or if you want to play more culturally and scientifically, there's civilizations that are good at both culture and science. So you can basically, depending on what you want to play as, pick your civilization. In the first game I played as China, and I tried to keep it as traditional as possible, right? So, like, when I evolved, I went from China to China to China, right? Like all three ancient East Asian civilization dynasties. I didn't do any crazy switching, like I didn't go from China to France to Africa or, what have you. Which you can do, by the way, which is a little silly, right? Like with the Civ switching. But I kept it very traditional for my first playthrough. My first playthrough was just like, I'm being thrown into the deep end of all these new mechanics. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on, how to play this new game. And I had a great time, but I had an even better time with my second game, right? Because, like, once you get past the initial shock of all these new mechanics being thrown at you, that's when I think you can really start appreciating the game for what it is, rather than be like, oh, I wish this was more like Civ 6 or Civ 5, which I think a lot of people feel right now.
That's just a weird feeling to me. Just sorry to interrupt, but Civ 5 was a perfectly good game, and you could release Civ 5 today, and I wouldn't be sitting here saying anything was wrong with it. So I don't understand why Civ fans would be upset that a new game came out today that's not exactly like their old game that they still have access to.
Exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of Civ fans want iteration and not a radical reimagining. But I think Civ 6 was more of an iteration on Civ 5. Obviously, the districts and stuff were kind of a unique thing that Civ 6 brought to the table.
I never played
Civ
it.
7 is way more of a radical reimagining of the franchise, and I think that's why it's being seen as controversial. But I love it.
Yeah, I think
these ideas, especially because this is Civ 7 at launch.
Yeah.
This game is going to be around for the next decade. Imagine this game 5 years from now after an expansion or two is out. Like, if this is how strong it is at its foundation, and plus, Firaxis is really good at listening to player feedback. They're very receptive to player feedback. So the game itself is in good hands. And if it's in this good state at launch, I think it bodes very well for the future health of this game.
Yeah.
Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I just think it's interesting. I do want to point out that something I saw an ad for this. There's a Meta Quest version of Civ 7 coming out that's mixed reality.
Yeah, I saw that. Like,
I think
what?
that's I think this is a cool idea to actually like have the game taking place on a tabletop, because it's always had like a tabletop vibe to it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's been enhanced with the 7. They've leaned into that more.
But can you imagine you have 35 hours in this game?
Yeah.
Imagine if those
played 2.5 games.
Imagine if those 35 hours were spent with a headset on.
Yeah, no, I couldn't do that.
That's ridiculous. Like I don't know anyone who can keep a VR headset on for that amount of time. That's a tall order. I think it's cool. I hate that. I would love to have that mode available to me, but also be able to just play it on my PC. But that's not an option. I think you have to buy the Meta Quest version of the game to have it. So
I do want to point out another really good thing is that there is crossplay in this game.
Yeah.
So
Extreme.
for the
this
first
is
time,
on, like, everything too, right? It's on console.
Yeah. So this was the first Civilization game that was released simultaneously on everything. Right?
Oh, is this on
so
mobile?
Traditional, everything except mobile, I think. But like traditionally in the past, right? Civilization is developed on PC, and like I don't even know why I'm saying that, right? Because the only Civilization that was on console was Civilization 6. If we're counting the mainline entries, obviously there were like spin-offs and stuff. But Civilization 6 developed first for PC, came to console many years later. But Civilization has been surprisingly popular on console, even though I don't think it's very intuitive to play this game with a controller. But it's very big on console. So for Civ 7, they had a simultaneous launch, right? So they developed PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch, right? This game's on Switch. All launched on the same day. Crossplay between all of them, which is fantastic.
Awesome.
I love that. Because I do have friends like, Tom, he's on Xbox.
Yeah.
Right. And he always asks, like, hey, you want to play Civ 6, right? But he's playing Civ 6 on an Xbox. I'm like, I'm not about to buy Civ 6 on Xbox.
No.
I'm sorry, dude. But now, right, like once he buys Civ 7, we're set.
Yeah,
right.
you're good.
Like that's great. So that's awesome. That's a pro. Gonna follow it up with a con now, just to keep things balanced.
Yeah.
Another thing about this game that I think needs a tremendous amount of work, and I actually haven't seen too many people talking about this, so I don't know if it's just a me thing or what, but the map generation in this game is absolutely terrible. It's god awful, especially compared to like the varied maps that you get with like interesting land masses and what have you on Civ 5 and 6. In this game, it just generates basically 2 square blocks, and those are your continents. I'm like, how is this such a significant step down from 5 and 6? I have no idea, because like it seems like the tech for the map generation has regressed like a decade.
That's not
or
complicated tech either. That's like,
which I don't understand what went wrong there.
Huh.
So that 100% needs improvement. I don't think there's any excuse for that,
feels
because
like an easy fix though.
It's just it's so bad, right? Like if you play on Continents Plus, which is like the standard, the default map selection, you get your 2 continents and then your 2 rows of islands, and they're like all like boom, 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 like they're all parallel. And this is not how like a world map works.
Yeah, that's
really
like stupid.
It really is. It's very bad. I don't know what's up with that. So I hope they fix it. Obviously, I hope they add more map types to the game too. That's an area where Civ 7 is very much lacking behind Civ 6. I can kind of excuse it though, because like we're comparing a launch game to a game that's been out for a decade.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you'll add more map types, more historical scenarios, right? Those are not in this game at all.
Oh wow! Can you play on Earth?
I think,
like, do you have the Earth map available?
No Earth, which is also a surprising omission,
crazy.
Right? Yeah, so there are some things that are omitted from this game that make me feel like it might have just come out early.
Yeah.
Especially with the UI, right? Like the UI seems like, I don't know, the UI seems kind of like it seems like a tacked on almost placeholder UI. So I'm like, was this game rushed out the door? I don't know. Like it could have been. like when you look at stuff like this, but you look at the actual systems in the game itself, and they're so refined and complex, and like I said, the foundation of the game is really good. It's very solid.
Good bones.
So it's just like, and that's the most important thing, right? Like if you have good bones, you can build on that. You can fix everything else.
You can fix a UI even. Yeah.
Yeah. So all the problems I think Civ 7 has right now are fixable. It's just like maybe it could have benefited from another few months in the oven, but I'm not regretting my early purchase at all. I'm having a blast with this game. And I do want to talk about, I know this is getting pretty in-depth, so if you're not a fan of Civilization, this is probably a lot.
That's what timestamps are for.
Yeah, the different victory types, right? So there's no religious victory anymore. So religion has gotten downsized. Yeah, it'll probably come back in an expansion. But religion is now relegated to the exploration age, the middle of the three ages, which I found kind of interesting, right? So the three ages have unique mechanics too now, right? So in Antiquity Age, it's a lot about just getting your civilization set up, exploring with your scouts, seeing what the world, like your continent, looks like, founding a pantheon, which is like a very early prototypical religion, and like all this was in Civ 6 as well, but it was like obviously all connected. But you do that in Civ 7, and religion is tied to culture in Civ 7. So religion helps you get a cultural victory. So past the Antiquity Age, you go to the Exploration Age, and that's all about the mechanics are centered around distant lands. So the main thing is you want to build ships to explore the other continents, other lands, because in the Antiquity Age, you do not have the ability to build ships that can cross the ocean. You just don't, your technology doesn't progress that far. So that starts happening in the Exploration Age, and that's where you can meet other civilizations from the other continent, form diplomatic relations with them, what have you.
I have a question. Do you all progress into a new age at the same time, or is this per player?
It's all at the same time now.
Okay.
So like in previous civs, right, like depending on your science or culture, you could be technologically and culturally in like the Renaissance age, whereas if like another player is doing really well, they can be in the Information Age. Not that's all gone now, right? Okay. So it's basically like kind of like a soft reset between ages.
Interesting.
Depending on how well you do in an age, like depending on how well you do, you can carry over certain bonuses that can enhance your start for the next age. So it is in your best interest to still play as well as you can on the play style you want, right? Like, so either science, economics, military, or culture, or diplomacy. I can't remember if diplomacy is a victory path. It might be. But depending on one of those 5 paths, right? Like, depending on how well you do, because you have kind of milestones for each that you can try to go down, or you can attempt all of them if you're feeling ambitious, but I've not been able to do that yet. You have to pick and choose a couple areas of focus. But depending on how well you do in those areas, you get bonuses that you can select from at the beginning of the next age to help kickstart your game, right? So in the Exploration Age, you're exploring, finding the distant lands, you're settling the distant lands. Obviously, there's border conflicts now because the world is becoming smaller, proverbially, because you've sailed across the world, you've met all the other civilizations, there's border disputes, wars, what have you. And religion, right? So you found a religion in the Exploration Age, and this, I think, is another kind of undercooked area of the game. Religion is not very good in Civilization 7, especially compared to the previous 2 games. It's basically just creating missionaries and spreading your religion to get further along your culture victory path for the Exploration Age. I think, yeah, like you said, Mike, I think religion is due for an overhaul in an expansion. But all this to say, right, like, so those are like the core mechanics in the Exploration Age. Then you go into the Modern Age, and this is the final age in this game, right? So, and this is another area where I feel like there's going to be DLC, because I feel like there absolutely has to be a 4th age, at least, like an Information Age, because there's no giant death robots in this game, which is a
staple. Yeah,
which is a Civilization staple. Yeah, so it the technology tree basically ends in the Modern Age, which is the end of the game, right? It ends in the Modern Age when you send a rocket to the moon, right? So like that seems early, right? Especially if you look at previous Civilization games, you're sending like an exoplanet mission to Mars or something at the end of Civ 6, or like, you're researching nanotechnology and hydroponics and all these things that don't exist.
Wasn't landing on the
in
moon a scientific victory in Civ 5?
No.
I think it was Mars, but
Yeah.
like I don't know. Civ 5 was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But point being, it just ends too early, right? Which
Yeah.
makes me think that there's going to be a fourth age coming. But yeah, so science victory, right? So you launch the moon landing, right? That's how you win via science in the modern age. Culture victory, I haven't achieved that yet, but I believe it is. That's what I'm going for in my game that I'm currently playing.
Mhm.
But culture victory, I believe you just you collect relics and display them in your civilization, and if you display enough relics, you gain cultural domination
The
and
British philosophy.
and win. Right, and the way, and again, the modern age introduces a new mechanic exclusive to the modern age, where you have explorers that can dig up relics from earlier ages across the world. So that if you're playing culture, that's what you're trying to do. The second game
victory.
Exactly, that's exactly right. The second game I played, I got an economic victory, and that was a lot of fun. So like by the time I was in the modern age, I was making an obscene amount of money per turn, like 3,000 plus gold per turn. I had like 50K plus in the bank. I was just funding everything, right? Like I'd set my perks up and my civilization up to basically just buy anything I needed, whether it be like armies or buildings or districts. I even unlocked a perk eventually to buy wonders, which, like Mike, as someone who's played Civilization, I don't think previous games had that ability where like you always have to build your wonders, but like playing in an economic focused Civ, I unlocked this ability in the modern age to actually purchase wonders.
That's wild.
So playing economics was really fun, right? So the way you win for that is that you basically create a trade empire in the modern age. So you set up factories and you set up railroads and you connect all your settlements via rail or ports. And once you have like this trade network set up, you start earning like these economic victory points for the resources you have slotted into your factories. And that's a whole mechanic I'm not even going to go into. But once you generate enough points, you generate like this world banker. And then you have to have the banker travel to the capital of every city in the world and establish an office. And once you do that, you win an economic victory, which is cool, right? Like that was fun. Military victory, that's self-explanatory. I haven't done that yet, but I will say I think combat is really good in this game, better than Civ 6 for sure. And why do I think that? It's because of the new commander mechanic, right? So like you have these commanders. So your troops don't gain experience and level anymore, Mike. Like I'm saying this to you because like you've played before, right? So your troops do not gain experience anymore. Your commander does. So if you have a commander that is either on the same tile as your troop or adjacent to your troops, and your troops fight, an enemy, your commander gains experience. And if your commander levels up, you can upgrade one of several like trees for your commander that enhance your combat abilities. And each commander has their own like XP, right? So if you have like a war in multiple fronts, you probably want another commander, so you can start leveling up that commander with your troops over there. But the commander is a good way to control your armies, right? So you can have your army all form up on your commander on a turn, or you can have, if they're formed up on your commander, you can move your commander and then deploy your army all on tiles around you, right? Like, so there are ways to use your commander to make more dynamic and strategic decisions during war. And I think it's a lot better, honestly. Like at first I was a little skeptical when my troops weren't gaining experience. I was like, what is this? But after messing around with the commanders, I think I like it better. So yeah, so military victory. Yeah, so obviously you capture every capital in the world. I do think you have to research atomic weapons and drop a nuke to win. I haven't gotten that far yet, though. In all the games I played, there were no nukes. I wasn't even sure if nukes were in the game. So I had to look it up before this, because like if they weren't in the game, that would have been like
That would've been
blasphemous
crazy, yeah.
for nukes to not be in a Civilization game. But they are. I just haven't seen them yet, which is crazy, because like there's been so many mechanics I've been experimenting with, haven't even gotten to the nukes yet, which I'm looking forward to trying. Yeah. Side note: no Gandhi in this game,
No,
which
Gandhi?
which is also kind of blasphemous for a Civilization game, right? I'm sure Gandhi's coming,
No wonder
but
there's no nukes.
for Gandhi to not be there at launch and for Gandhi to not like nuke someone, you know, like
Yeah.
that's a Civilization classic. Gandhi not being in the game is that's shocking, quite frankly. But there are a lot of leaders in this game. I think another area of this game that is better is diplomacy. So diplomacy has been completely reworked. It now has a currency that is used for most of your diplomatic actions called influence. And this is a currency just like gold, right? You have a certain amount of it, you accrue a certain amount of it per turn, and you can use it.
They
Yeah.
just put a currency. Oh my god, this is like the worst. This is like a terrible Paradox game, not a Civ game.
Well, that's the thing. I like the currency better. Like, I think diplomacy as a currency actually works. Because, like, it is used for your relationships with the other civs, right? So if you want to spy on a civilization, that takes influence to do. You better have enough influence to do it. If you want to counter spy, that takes influence. If you want to establish a trade deal with civilization, that takes influence. If you want to declare war, you can spend influence to give yourself more war support to make your troops stronger. So influence is a very important currency, and it's also used for city states, right? If you want to ally with a city state, that takes influence. If you want to incorporate an allied city state into your civilization, which you can do now, by the way, without going to war, just absorb them into your civilization, that takes influence as well. So influence, much like culture, science, and gold, that's a core resource you have to make sure you are managing, accruing. Yeah, influence is key, especially because like without it, other leaders, like the other civilizations, can just walk all over you. Because if they denounce you, if you have enough influence, you can actually reject their denunciation, which is new, right? Like, so having a lot of influence, it shapes a lot in this game, right? Like it impacts your experience a lot. And you can absolutely play this game in a way where like you want to focus strictly on diplomacy to win the game. You can do that. So I think diplomacy is better in this game than previous Civ games. So diplomacy is better, religion is worse. I think science and culture, they're different, but I think just about the same in terms of how good they are compared to previous Civ games. Maybe culture could use a little reworking, because just gathering and displaying relics, that can get kind of stale. But yeah, those are like kind of the major mechanics for all the victory paths. I just wanted to go over that because I think that's core to how the game is actually played. But
It's a lot of gobbledygook to me, having not played Civ 5.
Yeah, I know,
10
right?
years.
Yeah.
I played it. I think the last time I played it, I was in high school.
I honestly think, like it's funny you say that. I think you, who have zero baggage with Civilization,
I probably like this game a lot more.
Would
than
play this game and love it. You know?
I am a
like,
UI hater, though. A bad UI ruins a game for me. Like,
Yeah,
I never
so-
finished Echoes of Wisdom for that reason.
Yeah, so I do think that is the one. Like, if you're looking for my negatives,
Yeah.
right? That is the one inexcusable negative, is
Yeah.
to have a poor UI on a game like Civilization. So this negative is so bad. Like, if your entire experience was tainted by this UI, that I think that's a totally valid opinion. Right? Like, if you hate Civ 7 because of the UI, that makes sense to me. But if you can get past the UI and you play the game, engage with its mechanics, I think you'll find, like I've found, that there's so much good stuff here. And it gets me really excited for the future of Civilization 7, because I think with a few patches, a couple expansions, I think this is going to be the definitive Civilization game. And again, right, like, and if you can't get past the Civ switching or the eras, there's Civ 6 right there. There's Civ 5 right there.
Right.
Those earlier mechanics that you prefer are there for you to go back to whenever you want. Right? So Civ 7 is definitely trying something new, and I think it is largely succeeding. So I'm having a blast with this game. I'm going to keep playing it. 35 hours in Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So 5 days,
Yeah.
right? Like, It's a lot.
Yeah. Mike, do you have anything? I have two.
I have actually been playing a lot more Vintage Story. I've finally broken out of the Stone Age, so I can actually talk about the game.
Oh, yeah.
So, first off, now that I'm out of the Stone Age and properly making copper and bronze tools, well, we're working on bronze, but the game gets a lot easier past survival once you get into the Copper Age.
That makes sense.
Because now I suddenly have farms running. I'm doing the crop rotation. We have plenty of food. It's not me on the border of starving to death at all.
I mean, that was the case in Valheim too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you have some good gear going, it's a lot easier to keep sustainable.
Now it becomes exploration and looking for ores and prospecting for ores to try to get more and better equipment. But
what is the Rust?
The Rust
dimension
world?
Yeah, the Rust world.
This eldritch dimension that caused a cataclysm or something.
Okay.
It's very poorly explained right now. They're working on adding lore.
Okay.
But they're
patching lore into the game.
Yeah, we came through our first temporal storm where every 10 days, I think in the settings, enemies can spawn anywhere at any time.
Oh no.
For roughly 15 minutes.
That's a long time.
And they're going to be the strongest variety of the enemy. Or some of the strongest varieties. Oh, it's rough. All of a sudden, the sky goes dark. The giant gears start appearing on the horizon. And enemies that are kind of twitching and phasing out of reality start spawning everywhere and shooting at us.
That sounds awesome.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of terrifying.
God, I want this game to be finished so I can play it. I think it sounds really fun.
Oh, yeah, I'm having a blast. We're now in summer, so
yeah,
I've had to invest in or work on getting food storage up and running.
I mean, kind of don't starve vibes a little bit too.
Yeah. We have a cellar dug that's full of crocks, full of prepared soup and vegetables. We've started animal domestication, and I had that NPC moment where I come over and my friend's running around in circles in a pen chased by a feral hog. Like it looked like something out of like an old Spyro game, right?
Yeah.
Where you come upon this NPC getting chased in a circle.
Yeah.
By some creature. It's just my friend chasing around a hog, frantically yelling me to get the other hog in the pen so he can escape.
That's really funny.
We died to this hog like 7 times.
Oh my god.
We got him. We got him in the pen. But
good.
It wasn't great. It's deep. There's a lot to it. I feel like I have a grasp on mechanics and suddenly it throws another mechanic at me.
Yeah, I love a game like that.
That's been me with Civ lately.
That's been what I like about Monster Hunter is like you have access to all the mechanics very early, but you just kind of if you start losing, then you have to learn a new mechanic that's going to give you the edge you need to win.
Like now I have to learn blacksmithing and forging.
Oh yeah, that sounds cool.
Storage.
Yeah.
Spoilage, making soup's a mechanic. This game does everything in its power to avoid using the 3x3 crafting grid.
Yeah.
I have had less time using 3x3 crafting grid and more time sitting there manually making tools.
That's good, I think, though. That's more fun.
It's so fun. Like even pottery, making clay pots is something that I have to sit there and do by hand.
That's cool. Anything else to say about Banter Story?
Nothing yet. Maybe once I get to winter and I start freezing to death.
I'm trying to decide which of mine I want to talk about first. I'll go with a real quick one first. I did end up picking up one of those mobile controllers that slides on the side of your phone. I found one that fits. I have a foldable phone, and I found one that fits that. And it's actually pretty sick. Those foldables tend to be like a 6x5.
So are you fully folded out when you?
Yeah, fully folded out. And I have the controller on the bottom, which is the tricky part because a lot of the controllers want to attach to the top. Because that's where the USB is. So I ended up getting a Bluetooth one for that reason. And it's pretty cool. 5x6 screen. You'd be surprised what PC games support a 5x6 aspect ratio. Spider-Man does. Like it fills that screen. And it's pretty cool. I had to set up a new streaming server called Apollo that'll like actually black out my screen when I'm streaming. I really like that, so it's not burning in my OLED. And it automatically like goes to the aspect ratio of the device. And I actually played a lot of the side content in Spider-Man that way, since I could play it from bed, because it's just a better form factor than the Steam Deck. It 120 frames per second. It's a higher resolution than the Steam Deck. It's lighter, and the battery lasts forever. I think it's 1% every 10 minutes or so, which really isn't that bad. That's 6% an hour of my phone battery.
For your controller, right?
No, for my phone.
For your phone, really?
Yeah.
While you're playing a game?
Yeah.
That's all it takes. That's impressive.
Because it's streaming. It's essentially just playing a YouTube video.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not actually playing the game, so
and it's when you're streaming at 120 frames per second in home. I have it set up to do over 5G as well. I haven't done that a ton. I found the input latency tolerable over cellular, but it's like not noticeable at all on my local network, just because the frame rate's so high and everything. It was a good way to play through some of the side content in Spider-Man, so I did that. But other than that, there was another Monster Hunter Wilds beta this past weekend. I played that. I got some friends to play that. I don't think they liked it very much.
Oh, no. So one thing I saw, I read this online, is that the starting area is not a good place for new... Like, the area you have in the beta is not, like, representative.
I agree with that, kind of. It's a lot of, like... It's just a beta. It's not the full game, so we just wanted to play multiplayer. But to get to multiplayer, they had to watch the opening cutscene, hunt the Chatacabra, figure out what was going on, talk to Alma and everything, hunt the Doshiguma, and then we had to figure out the menus, which are kind of a mess.
Right. Yeah, I remember having a similar experience when I played the first beta.
It's the same beta. It's the same build.
Okay, yeah, because I remember just feeling like, can I please just get to the actual... Like, I didn't want the cutscenes. I didn't want the intro.
And
then once I was playing and actually going out and hunting, did I ever play with you?
No, we didn't get a chance to play together. There's another beta this weekend though, if you want to.
Okay, yeah, I might check that out.
Yeah,
but yeah, I was playing it with my friend Josh, and that part was great. I had a great time doing that, learning some of the weapons and stuff. But
yeah, it just was kind of. It also is like a weird spot where, because it was both of us and I'm experienced. The easy monster, the Chatacabra, the Doshiguma, the Balahara, were all a little too easy for us. But then the Rei Dao, the big lightning dragon, was hard, but also they were using a bow, so like they weren't dying. It was just taking forever to kill it. And I was getting, I was dying. But it did take us like 30 minutes to beat Rei Dao, just because Rei Dao is probably supposed to be further into the game. It's not... We're on very beginner gear, but you can fight him. I just don't know if it made a great first impression. And also, there's a lot of controversy around performance. This is the same build of the game for this beta, so this is
why didn't they use a new one? Obviously, they have to have a new one. The game's launching soon.
They did put out a benchmark tool, which is actually representative of the final game. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm happy with my performance in the benchmark. It is, at times, I dip below 60 FPS at 4K, even with like FSR quality and everything. But the times that it dipped don't really bother me. They were times, and it never dipped below 50 for me. So I'm just kind of satisfied with that. It's not perfect, but the times that it was in 50 were like in the town. Like they weren't high intensity action moments, because the high intensity action in Monster Hunter is going to be during a fight, and typically during a fight, the NPCs run away, the passive monsters run away, and it's you versus the monster, and maybe some of the monsters have like little helpers with them. And I just, from what I was seeing, I think the performance is going to be okay. But I don't know. There's a bunch of people, and it's hard because I am obviously a really big fan of this franchise, so I'm coming in with my feelings about it. But then other people are coming in. I'm seeing people online that are saying, oh, I have my 9800X 3D, I have my 5090, I should be able to play this game at 4K 120 FPS native. I'm like, no. There's never been a time in history where you've been able to play the newest, best games at 4K 120 FPS. That's never happened.
This is not going to happen. I'm sorry, you're paying thousands of dollars for what is like 3 more fake frames.
It's just
like it's a con. Buying a 5090 is a con. You're conning yourself to spend thousands of dollars for a bigger number.
So there's a lot of outrage around the performance of this game, and I think it's a little unwarranted, especially with games like Spider-Man around and like Elden Ring. Elden Ring
game on medium.
This game performs substantially better than Elden Ring for me, and nobody I heard far less complaining about Elden Ring, but maybe it's just the circles I'm in. But this thing runs fine on PlayStation. It runs fine, especially the new builds. It runs fine on Xbox. It runs fine on PlayStation. And if you have a PC that is a similar level to those, you're gonna be fine or better. You know, you're gonna have a better experience. I don't agree with how much criticism it's getting. I think it is there's optimization left on the table here. I think I'd be crazy to say that there's not. And Digital Foundry.
Yeah, I mean that's typically the case with Capcom games.
Yeah,
they get optimized heavily after launch.
And Digital Foundry did some talk about it. There's also a lot of people saying this game is uglier than Monster Hunter World was, and they're just wrong. They're crazy. That's just not true. I did see Digital Foundry put out some stuff in their digital DF Weekly today that pointed out that the lighting leaves some to be desired, especially in the towns. And probably that's probably true. There's no RTGI or anything in this game. I think it's fine, but it just kind of is what it is. I'm not there for the towns. I'm there for the wildlife, the hunting, all that stuff. I don't really care what the town looks like that much as long as it's kind of cozy. So I don't know. I just wanted to mention that. I thought it was kind of...
Yeah, I mean, the launch is kind of imminent now, right?
2 weeks.
Couple weeks now?
Yeah, 2 weeks from Friday. So, very exciting. And only one of those weeks will you not be able to play the beta. You'll be able to play the beta this weekend, and they actually extended that a day because of the PSN outage.
Does that carry over to the main game?
Your character customization does, and you get a little trinket for having played the beta, but that it doesn't matter which one you played. But I like that I can get the character customization out of the way so I can jump straight into the game. I think more games should let you do that.
Yeah.
That also is kind of a Capcom special.
It's becoming that.
I think they did that with Dragon's Dogma and what have you.
I spent a substantial amount of time, not so much on the character creator, but on the Palico creator. I made my cat Astrid.
Oh, nice.
Because her coloring is a little tricky. She's a black and white tux kind of cat, which they have coloring for that, but it just wasn't an exact match. So I sat down and spent 2 hours using the patterns and using the markings and everything, moving them around, trying to get as close as I could to an exact match, and trying to figure out the voices I want to for everything, just because I had the time because of the beta.
Right.
It's fun. Mike, you said you had another game?
Yeah, so I got this in a Humble Bundle a while ago, and I just now bothered playing it. It's called Severed Steel, and it's a single-player FPS. It's based on a movement shooter, a bunch of movement mechanics.
Okay. What was it called again? See that? Again?
Severed Steel.
Severed Steel. Okay.
Yeah. It.
I feel like you've talked about this game before.
I have not.
Have you?
Not talked about it, I don't think.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, I played it a week ago.
And you weren't here last week. So.
Yeah, I wasn't here last week. So yeah, I haven't talked about this before. It's a heavy movement-based shooter, and the whole gimmick is you only have one arm. That's it. You don't have another hand. You cannot reload your gun.
Oh.
Your other arm is an arm cannon that can be used to blow holes in walls because all the environments are destructible.
That's cool.
You know how cool it is to dive kick through a window and tag somebody in the head while you're in bullet time?
I gotta see what this game looks like.
This game fills so many endorphins.
Wow, this is a good looking game too.
Yeah, it's very stylistic, and most of it I've spent in bullet time because I've been diving and kicking so fast, sliding through the levels, blowing holes in walls, wall running, because you don't take damage as long as you're doing some kind of movement.
Is this you got this in a Humble Bundle?
Yeah.
Is it still available?
No, it was a while ago. I bought it in a Cyberpunk bundle.
Okay.
How does this game compare to Ghost Runner? Because hearing you talk about it reminds me a lot of Ghost Runner.
Much less difficult than Ghost Runner. Now, you have a gun. You have a lot of movement. It makes me feel like I'm playing as John Wick, you know? It's the John Wick experience. I go in, I slide along the floor, I hit a Max Payne dive in bullet time, and suddenly 8 guys are on the floor, and I need to take one of their guns because I'm out of ammo because I can't reload.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, this looks sick.
Yeah, I'll encounter someone with a riot shield, so I'll slide, jump over them, and kick them in the head, then shoot them. I feel so stylish. I was running through a train, kind of doing flips in the air to dome people.
Yeah,
It's so cool. It's such a cool game. And I feel like there's so much replayability. I think there's a roguelike mode.
Ooh.
You've collected like do 10 levels randomly generated with like perks and everything you can unlock. I haven't touched it. I've been touching the campaign.
Speaking my language.
It's so quick. I'm already on chapter 3 and I played maybe half an hour. Levels are quick. I'm having fun. I need to finish it.
This seems very cool.
Yeah.
It seems like a game I could be sold on.
That's only it's $25.
Yeah, $25. A little steep for indie, but it looks really fun. So who am I to say?
Yeah, it makes me feel like really good at games for a little bit.
Yeah.
I like a game that makes me feel cool, and this one makes me feel very cool. Even if
I got one more.
Very nice.
I've been I replayed Psychonauts 2 this weekend.
Oh, nice.
I'm glad I did because I don't know if you remember when I talked about it on the show, but when it came out, I played through it. But I had like a trip or something, and I ended up like basically speed running through it and not really getting to smell the roses. I love this game. It's so good. It's such a weird game. I love the original. Have you guys played the original Psychonauts?
No.
I've only played a bit of it, but I did play Psychonauts 2.
Oh, okay. So you played the second one. The first one is the must play for me. If I was going to recommend one of these games, I think it's not. The second one is better in every way I can think of. The story, the game feel, everything. But it's like a weird time thing. I wish Psychonauts 2 had come out 5 years sooner. Because Psychonauts 1 deserved a sequel and it was really good, but and it felt like kind of ahead of the time when it came out, not really for controls or anything, but just that type of game, the storytelling and a third-person platformer and everything, or a 3D platformer. Most platformers are third-person. But then Psychonauts 2 kind of felt dated at launch to me. It kind of, I don't know, it just should have been 2015, not 2020.
Well, to me, Psychonauts 2 felt like it just felt like an ode to the 3D platform.
To an older time.
And that felt great to me.
I just love the writing in this game. I've seen people complain about it, but the joke about when you die in the dream, you pee your pants got me again. I laughed at that the first time. I laughed at that this time too. I love all the characters in this. I like all the interns. I spent a little more time because I had the time this time. I remember I had the criticism the first time I played it that they had all these cool characters, but you didn't spend any time with them. And it turns out there were like opportunities to spend time with them. It was just all very optional. And I still think that it probably should have been some of it mandatory so that it didn't feel so awkward when they all are suddenly nice to you and your friends at the end of the game. But it is cooler when you get to hang out with those other interns a little bit more and get to know the characters. I don't know. I don't have a lot to complain about this game. It's really fun. The powers are a little lame. I definitely would have redone the controls. You spend a lot of time mapping. You have your like 8 different psychic powers that you have to map to, I think 3 or 4 different buttons. I think 4. Your bumpers and your triggers can do your psychic powers. It would have been really nice if one of those psychic powers was on the Y button that doesn't do anything in this game except for context-sensitive actions. Stuff like that. I think they could have. Stick clicks don't do anything in this game. I think there are definitely some powers that they could have been a little more creative with the controls, so you spend a little less time in menus. But that's a little nitpicky. I really like the game. I hope we get a Psychonauts 3, or even a remaster. A Psychonauts 1 that feels like Psychonauts 2 would be incredible.
Yeah, I would love that.
That would make me so happy.
I mean, I actually, you probably don't remember this, Connor, but like I played Psychonauts 2 because you were so into it. You recommended it so highly, and I loved it. But then after that, I went back and tried to play Psychonauts 1, and I was just like, it just feels a little
terrible.
Too dated.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good to play. But the Milkman it has 2 levels that I think 2 Psychonauts 1 levels beat everything in Psychonauts 2 by a lot. It has a level called the Milkman Conspiracy, and it has another level that I don't remember the name of, but it's a guy who's like a distant descendant of Napoleon Bonaparte, and you go inside his mind, and he's playing a Civ kind of game. No, it's smaller scale than that, but it's like a tabletop strategy game that he's playing with Napoleon Bonaparte in his mind, and you have to help him win the game. And those 2 levels alone make the first Psychonauts totally worth playing. I really love them. Yeah, I don't know. Such a good franchise. I hope we get either a remaster or Psychonauts 3. I would love to see that so much. Especially now, I think Xbox owns them now. I think.
Yeah.
Double Fine.
Yeah, I'd love to see Psychonauts 3. I definitely fell in love after playing Psychonauts 2.
They're just so
fantastic game.
Like the characters are everything. Like Lizzie, the blue girl, is like hilarious. Every word she says is hilarious. Lobato, the mad scientist dentist guy, is so funny. Lily and Raz are like adorable together, and this is the first time I think you ever got to see Lily and Raz work together in one of the later levels of Psychonauts 2. And they're I don't know, it's just very cute writing. I really love that game. And Raz's family are all amazing as well.
All right, we have anything else?
Nope.
All right, I think that will do it for us this week. There is going to be a Sony State of Play today, like basically when this episode releases, so Wednesday evening. So if anything crazy happens, we'll probably be talking about that next week. Kind of doubt it, but we'll see. But for now, thank you all for listening. You can follow us at Podcast Game Talk on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky, and YouTube. Click the link in the description to join our Discord and talk to us there. And please like and review us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast services you use. Thank you, Connor and Mike.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.